On October 17, 1987, the quiet backroads of Willow Creek, a secluded community nestled deep in the woods of northern Alabama, became the epicenter of a case that would expose decades of dark secrets. Sarah Jenkins, a 23-year-old journalist from the Birmingham Post, had been researching a series of historical disappearances that dated back to the 1930s. Driving a blue 1985 Ford Taurus, Sarah was last seen turning onto Hollow Ridge Road, the only access point to a settlement known locally as Kinfolk Hollow. Local records indicated that Sarah had been investigating the unusual demographic patterns and history of isolation of this community. Her editor received a final call at 2:14 p.m., where Sarah excitedly mentioned discovering family records that prove everything. The call abruptly ended, with what sounded like a vehicle approaching on gravel. Temperature that day reached 60 degrees with light rain, beginning around noon, creating foggy conditions across the densely wooded terrain. Sarah Jenkins was the daughter of retired police detective Michael Jenkins and community college professor Eleanor Jenkins. A graduate of Columbia Journalism School, she had built a reputation for investigative reporting on rural American communities. Her interest in Willow Creek began after discovering county records showing that over 37 people had been reported missing within a 5-mile radius of Kinfolk Hollow since 1932, yet no bodies had ever been recovered. When Sarah failed to return to her motel that evening, her colleague James Wilson reported her missing to the Willow Creek Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Thomas Larson initially classified it as a routine delay, citing the area's poor phone reception and treacherous roads during rainy weather. The first search parties weren't organized until 48 hours later, when Sarah's abandoned car was discovered by a local hunter at the intersection of Hollow Ridge Road and an unmarked dirt path, approximately 3.7 miles from the main Kinfolk Hollow settlement. The vehicle showed no signs of collision or struggle. Sarah's camera equipment was missing, though her overnight bag remained in the trunk. Most notably, her research notebooks were absent, with only loose papers scattered on the passenger seat floor. These papers contained genealogical charts of the Blackwood family, the primary inhabitants of Kinfolk Hollow since the Great Depression. If you want to follow more cases like this one that shake entire communities and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any investigation. The initial investigation faced immediate complications. The Blackwood family, who comprised nearly 87% of Kinfolk Hollow's estimated 120 residents, maintained a hostile relationship with outside authorities. Historical records showed that the settlement had formed in 1932 when Ezekiel Blackwood led his extended family into the remote area during the height of the Depression, purchasing over 500 acres of unclaimed woodland. When investigators first entered the settlement on October 20, 1987, they encountered a community unlike any they had seen in modern Alabama. Houses arranged in a circular pattern surrounded a central meeting hall. Deputy Williams noted in his report that the residents appeared remarkably similar in appearance, with many sharing distinctive facial features, unusual height, and the same pale blue eyes. Most concerning was the community's reaction to questions about Sarah Jenkins. Blank stares and uniformly identical responses. No strangers have come this way. The first significant testimony came from Elijah Webster, a 72-year-old shopkeeper from neighboring Rawley's Crossing. Webster claimed that the Blackwoods operated under their own laws and had systematically purchased or intimidated owners of surrounding properties for decades. According to Webster, folks who ask too many questions about the Blackwoods tend to move away sudden-like, or they just ain't seen again. When pressed, Webster refused to elaborate, citing fear of retribution. The investigation stalled when Sheriff Larson mysteriously recused himself on October 23rd, citing personal connections to involved parties. Control transferred to State Police Detective Warren Hayes, who discovered that Larson's maternal grandmother had been born Emily Blackwood before marrying outside the community in 1943. A major obstacle emerged when investigators learned that the Willow Creek County Courthouse had suffered a suspicious fire in 1969 that destroyed most records prior to 1950. Consequently, birth certificates, death records, and land transfers involving the Blackwood family were largely undocumented. Detective Hayes noted that without these records, establishing the full extent of the family's control over the region and any connection to historical disappearances became exceptionally difficult. State forensic teams examining Sarah's vehicle found partial fingerprints belonging to Caleb Blackwood, the current patriarch of the family. When questioned, Caleb, aged 62, claimed he had helped the young woman with directions, but insisted she had left their community before sundown. This contradicted evidence from Sarah's cellular telephone records, which showed her phone remained in the vicinity of Kinfolk Hollow until 9:43 p.m., when it either was turned off or lost power. False leads proliferated as the investigation gained national attention. A waitress from Montgomery claimed to have served Sarah breakfast on October 19th, but security footage proved this impossible. Another report placed her at a gas station in Mississippi, but the woman identified was later confirmed to be a local resident with similar features. As November 1987 began, the investigation shifted focus when Detective Hayes uncovered county medical records showing alarming health patterns within the Blackwood lineage. Unusually high rates of genetic disorders, distinctive physical traits that intensified through generations, and medical complications typically associated with consanguineous relationships. These records aligned with Sarah's research notes, suggesting she had been investigating not just disappearances but the biological and social implications of prolonged genetic isolation. The case took a dramatic turn on January 12, 1988, when construction workers clearing land for a new highway 15 miles from Kinfolk Hollow uncovered a cache of personal effects buried in a metal container. The waterproof box contained identification belonging to 7 different individuals reported missing between 1965 and 1986, all of whom had been traveling through Willow Creek County. Most significantly, the box contained 3 rolls of exposed film and a voice recorder with Sarah Jenkins's fingerprints on the battery compartment. When developed, the photographs revealed disturbing images of the Kinfolk Hollow settlement, including interior shots of buildings not visible from public roads. The final roll contained genealogical documents, family portraits dating back to the 1930s, and images of what appeared to be a subterranean chamber beneath the community's central meeting hall. The voice recordings included Sarah's notes detailing her discovery that the Blackwood family had systematically maintained genetic isolation through strict control of marriages, resulting in one of the most concentrated examples of communal inbreeding in modern American history. Most alarming was Sarah's final recording, time-stamped at 8:17 p.m. on October 17th. "They've spotted me. I've hidden the evidence near Turner's Creek Bridge. The family records prove everything. The disappearances, the genetic isolation, the systematic removal of outsiders. Ezekiel Blackwood didn't just start a community, he started a controlled breeding program using his own family. It's been nearly 90 years of..." The recording ended with sounds of footsteps and muffled voices. This evidence prompted a full-scale investigation involving the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. Agent Catherine Morris, leading the federal team, noted that the Blackwood community displayed classic patterns of an isolated cult structure. What makes this case unique is the duration and the genetic component. This isn't just social isolation, it's biological isolation enforced through generational control. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. On March 3, 1988, Rebecca Blackwood, a 19-year-old who had recently fled the community, contacted authorities from a women's shelter in Nashville, Tennessee. Her testimony revealed the inner workings of the settlement. The elders control everything: who marries whom, who can leave, who must stay. Outsiders who learn too much are given the choice: join the family forever or disappear forever. Rebecca confirmed that Sarah Jenkins had been captured while photographing the community's sacred genealogical records, kept in a chamber beneath the meeting hall. These records, maintained since Ezekiel Blackwood's time, detailed the planned breeding pairs across generations and the removal of outsiders who threatened to expose their practices. Leave in the comments, never give up on the truth if you believe all missing persons deserve to be found. On April 17, 1988, based on Rebecca Blackwood's testimony and the evidence gathered, federal and state authorities launched a coordinated raid on Kinfolk Hollow. What they discovered shocked even seasoned investigators. Beneath the central meeting hall, accessible through a hidden entrance in the Blackwood family chapel, lay an extensive tunnel system extending nearly a quarter-mile into the hillside. Within these tunnels, authorities found a room containing meticulously maintained family records dating back to 1932. The documents revealed Ezekiel Blackwood's disturbing vision, creating what he called a pure lineage through controlled breeding of his descendants. His journals detailed his bizarre theories about genetic superiority and isolation from the genetic contamination of outside bloodlines. Most disturbingly, excavation of a sealed chamber revealed the remains of 26 individuals buried within the earthen walls. Forensic analysis would later confirm that these remains belonged to missing persons from across 5 decades, including Sarah Jenkins. Evidence suggested that some had been kept alive within the tunnel system for months before their deaths. Caleb Blackwood and 6 other family elders were arrested and charged with multiple counts of kidnapping, murder, and conspiracy. The trial, which began in September 1989, became one of the most sensational in Alabama history. Prosecutors presented evidence that the Blackwood elders had maintained their control through fear, isolation, and strategic elimination of threats to their way of life. Court psychologists who examined the younger members of the community found profound effects of generational isolation and inbreeding, cognitive impairments, socialization difficulties, and indoctrination so deep that many couldn't conceive of life outside the family structure. Medical geneticists testified about the biological consequences observed in the community, including elevated rates of rare recessive disorders and physical traits that had become progressively more pronounced through generations of consanguineous marriages. The case transformed understanding of isolated rural communities and prompted nationwide reviews of missing persons cases near similar settlements. The Children's Protection Act of 1990 was passed partly in response to the Blackwood case, strengthening regulations around monitoring isolated religious communities and homeschooling situations. The remaining Blackwood descendants, primarily children and young adults, faced enormous challenges integrating into society. Special rehabilitation programs were established, though many struggled with the psychological trauma of discovering their community's true nature. Rebecca Blackwood, whose testimony had been crucial to breaking the case, eventually became an advocate for survivors of isolated cult communities, establishing a foundation in Sarah Jenkins' name. Perhaps most significantly, the case forced Alabama and other states to strengthen oversight of remote communities and improve missing persons protocols. The Jenkins Alert System, implemented in 1992, established mandatory cross-referencing of disappearances occurring within defined geographic clusters, preventing similar communities from operating with impunity. Today, the former site of Kinfolk Hollow stands empty, reclaimed by the forest. A small memorial to Sarah Jenkins and the other victims stands at the entrance to what was once Hollow Ridge Road, bearing the inscription, "Their search for truth, shed light on generations of darkness." If you've watched this far, it's because you care about these cases that mark families forever. Leave a comment saying, "I watched until the end, so I can get to know you and know who really cares about the search for truth." If this case moved you, please hit the like button and share this video with someone who appreciates investigative journalism. Subscribe to stay updated on more shocking cases that have shaped our understanding of justice and human nature.